Without Kevin, it just kind of feels weird talking Nordstrom's here, but that is what we're going to do.
I know, somewhere Kevin is listening to us in the spirit, screaming about Nordstrom somewhere.
Hey, I
don't know who this guy is, but...
Hey, you were the closest thing we had, Tom.
Yeah,
yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, close second. But this week has kind of been the retail winners and losers. I mean, we've seen Target, Kohl's, Macys, a bunch of companies report all different numbers. So with Nordstrom, we're all kind of anxiously excited to see what comes out with earnings. So Megan, what are you seeing in your consumer purchase intent mentions?
So when we look at Nordstrom, we're looking at people talking about shopping at Nordstrom and also at Nordstrom Rack. And so this first chart that you see purchase intent is it's declining year over year. It's down about 18%, but you can see that the stock is faring even worse than the purchase intent. So in a normal scenario, this would set up a divergent play, right? This would be something that we would say, we think that this is a little bit oversold compared to the way that the purchase intent has performed. However, whenever you dive in, guys, I love Nordstrom. I really, really dug on this company to try to see okay, where can we pull? How are they doing in digital? How are they doing in Nordstrom Rack? And honestly, it's a decline pretty much across the board. So we are just not seeing strength in purchase intent at all.
Yeah, Megan, and I noticed from that purchase intent, every July, we're seeing a bump up in the mentions because of that great, awesome anniversary sale. Because that's the biggest thing about Nordstrom. They're not a discounter at all without Nordstrom Rack. So the actual Nordstrom brand, you'll see that bump up in your data every July based on that anniversary sale that comes along that everybody waits for year after year, like myself.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good indicator, and especially for this quarter that's about to report. And it's a little bit troubling because you can see after 4 years of pretty substantial growth, we see a reversal in this trend and some of the lowest anniversary sale levels that we've seen in a while. So this to us points at a sign of a struggle for the company. It's definitely not a good indicator for Nordstrom at all.
Well, real quick here, Megan, going in, you said you dug into kind of all the different components of this revenue stream. And when you're looking at this, is the strongest component still Nordstrom Rack, kind of their lower margin side of the business? Because their full price store has really been a pretty steady decline over the last couple of years.
Right. It's actually interesting. Whenever you isolate Nordstrom versus Nordstrom Rack and look at the actual decline, this last quarter, we actually found a larger decline in Nordstrom Rack than in Nordstrom. I think that's really troubling. I believe last quarter they also reported a decline in the off-price brand, which is Nordstrom Rack. So I think that that's a little bit concerning that they haven't been able to reverse that trend this quarter, or at least we're not seeing it in our data.
Yeah, that's a good point, Megan, because I think not this past quarter, the quarter before was the first time that we saw same-store sales decline in Nordstrom Rack. It made Kevin really sad, but it actually took place.
I know, Kevin is very...
He said there's lines every time he goes to Nordstrom Rack. But we saw same-store
There are
sales.
every time you go to Nordstrom Rack, and you see that on social media. I mean, people still do love the anniversary sale on Twitter, and I saw that definitely this morning. So our first tweet is from investor Mike, who says, I wouldn't lump Macys with Nordstrom. Macys does not have as upscale of a shopper as Nordstrom, and the consumer has been strong. Nordstrom numbers may not be that great, but they should be better. So this is a really good point, because we frequently show comp charts with Macys versus Nordstrom because they're these big box retailers. But how do you compare Nordstrom when they're such an upscale brand?
Well, the footprint of Nordstrom's a lot smaller, the number of stores that they have,
right.
That you have to take that in consideration. But that tweet could have been out there for the past year, and if you looked at their results on earnings, it's, it's that same old story. People the stock's been falling, we got to buy Nordstrom. It's still a really good brand, recognizable. They don't discount that much. Upscale shoppers are still out there spending money, as we've seen from other retailers. But the stock still falls.
But I think the upscale shopper likes that they don't go on sale. It kind of has this prestige around it.
Well, just to put some numbers to this, if you look at the second quarter performance of last year, 4% increase in comparable sales. If you look at first quarter of this year, decline of 3.5% year over year, 5.1% in their full price, and 0.6 decline, as Megan points out, in the off-price business. So definitely being outpaced in the full price than the off-price. But, if that was their bright spot and it's declining too, that's not good news, Jenny.
It sure isn't. And I mean, I have to say, I have to say, though, the news, we talked about this outside in the newsroom. Oliver Rennick is very excited about Nordstrom. Kevin was obviously very excited about Nordstrom. So there is a degree of excitement around this earnings report because I do think people think the bottom has happened. I mean, we can't really go much lower.
Yeah.
So our next tweet is from Hunter in response to my first tweet, who says, "From your lips to God's ears, holding Nordstrom and keeping the faith. Bought more today. Best e-commerce division in department store sector, and Rack is unquestionably solid." This was honestly for Kevin. I had to give him one positive tweet, but I mean, the sentiment on social media this morning, Megan, was pretty positive. And I know your purchase intent data isn't showing that, but I mean, I think I must have just been looking for good tweets because I shop at Nordstrom.
Yeah.
I love your first tweet that you found talking about Macys. You know, we joked around in the office. I was like, Nordstrom just needs to make their slogan, "We're not as bad as Macys." That's pretty much how they're exactly right. That's how their PI has been trending. But like you said, the stock has fallen so much. So there is a potential case or thesis to be made that it is oversold. I think that, you know, sentiment-wise, that is a bright spot for Nordstrom. You know, people talk about their customer service, people love their cafe. Whenever people do shop there, and the loyal customers are very pleased with the service that they receive. So in that sense, you know, Nordstrom does have that little bit of a glimmer of a bright spot, but it's hard to ignore the falling purchase intent level. And I think that anniversary sale, that dismal performance, that just scares me.
Yeah, I think this past year, Megan, you make a good point. It scared a lot of investors because you got to remember the co-founders of this company wanted to take it private at $50 a share just over a year ago, and the board rejected that, and now the stock's down at 25. So, yeah.
Yeah, Megan, just to kind of tie this all together, though, when you're looking at the purchase intent, we talked about it's declining. We see that, but the stocks outpaced that decline. So if you had to make a call based off this data, the divergence would lean a little bit more cautiously bullish from an oversold perspective. Am I right?
Yes, from a purely mathematical, if you're looking at PI signal versus stock performance, it is setting up a bullish divergence. However, I think that decline in purchase intent, that decline in their Nordstrom Rack, even a decline in what we're seeing in digital, that's very alarming for them. So that's extremely cautious. There's not anything positive that I could find or that we could find with purchase intent with Nordstrom, at least for this quarter.
All righty, Megan. Not setting up a great picture for us looking at Nordstrom here, but we appreciate it, and thanks for joining us.